Hello there, welcome back and welcome to part 40 of my build log of the Trumpeter 1 to 200 scale model of the Titanic. Be aware there's a giveaway at the end of this video, so if you're interested in seeing how you can win it, stick around until the end. Now, today I'll be working on the aft grand staircase, and I know this is an area that a lot of people have been quite interested in, so I've put quite a lot of effort into it. It's taken quite a long time, and hopefully it will live up to expectations. So, without any further ado, let's crack on. So I'm just looking at measuring up for the aft grand staircase here. And here is one of my aft grand staircase pieces. And rather curiously, the aft grand staircase on the Trumpeter cast is in the wrong place. If you look at actual drawings of a deck, the grand staircase butted up right against this wall here, right against the exterior wall. So in reality, that should sit there. But for some reason on the Trumpeter kit, it's been advanced by about 10 millimeters. And I don't really know why that is the case, but that is the case. So what we're gonna have to do, obviously I'm gonna have to cut out this staircase anyway, but then I'm also gonna have to make a cut back along here. And I'll probably also have to backfill this section with another piece of plastic just to sort of cover up the surgery that I'm gonna do. Now, one of the things I tend to do when I'm cutting stuff, particularly important stuff that it really matters that you're doing it accurately, is I tend to mark out the areas that I actually want to remove. So I'll tend to sort of just, hatch them to make sure that it's pretty obvious. And it's one of those things that, in an ideal world, you probably wouldn't need to do that, but I would be mildly embarrassed if you knew how many times I had been in a situation like this and then I've cut the wrong thing out, or I've started and I've realized halfway through I've made a mistake and I've had to sort of do a big sort of workaround to cover up the error that I've done. So it's worth doing. One of my lecturers at university always used to have an acronym, KISS, keep it simple stupid. So anything that you can do that reduces the risk of you making a mistake is probably quite worthwhile, really. So to make this cut, I'm using this modelling saw from Tamiya, and it's really good. I only got it a few days back, but yeah, tell you what, it is a really good bit of kit. It's almost like a Japanese saw in the sense that the teeth are orientated facing backwards so that you're actually cutting on the pull stroke rather than the push stroke. But it actually is very good for this sort of job. For the last section, because it would have been difficult to get the blade in, I used just a standard craft knife instead and repeatedly cut along the back, along the back, along the back until the blade went through and we made the successful cut. So now we're at a point where we have the first part of the aperture for the aft grand staircase, but we don't have it all. There's a fair bit more work to do here. This is our template. If I hold it over, you can see that we really need to backfill quite a lot of area here to get the appropriate sized aperture. So I'm going to have to make a piece that fits in with this arc here and takes back enough of that space that we get the appropriate hole. Shouldn't be too tricky, but will probably be one of those jobs that is quite time consuming. As with all resin parts, when you get them, they tend to be a wee bit sticky because there's a little bit of non-cured resin still left on them. So what I've done, I've just sprayed these with isopropyl alcohol and just rinse them off in water. And all that does is it just sort of allows the non-cured resin to dry off naturally. and it gets flushed away with the water, and you're left with nice clean parts which are no longer sticky, which can be painted. Simple. So as you can see, I've now made myself a little sort of patch repair, and that just fills the gap where the Trumpeter grand staircase was a little bit too far aft. So there we are, there's the template in place showing where the grand staircase needs to be. So what I'm going to do now is just transfer that arc onto this piece. Thus, and that gives us our cutting profile. It's a wee bit rough and ready, as you can see, but that's not really an issue, because what I'm going to do is I can fill around the outsides with some putty, which is necessary anyway, because if we get any light bleed, we don't want that popping up through the floor. Remember, the floor in this area is white tiling, so if any light does get up, the floor itself won't block the light, so it's important that we do sort of consider that. Nice thing about this stuff is you can score it and then cut it. Not the piece that we want. Right. Still a little bit wide, so I'm just going to take a little shaving off the side. That is now perfect, actually. Right. So just to check, I'm going to put the template back. And now we actually have a really nice aperture there, which is an appropriate shape for grand staircase. Excellent. Now I'm just having a look through my selection of sort of wooden colour paints, see if there's anything particularly similar in matching with these grand staircase prints, and there's not really. Matte 63 seems to be about the closest, and it's not far, but it is a wee bit different. So I think I'm going to have to mix something up. Now, I'm not particularly concerned about stuff not quite looking the same colour. I don't mind a bit of variety. After all, this is a wooden staircase, and wood's a natural product. It's not a uniform colour. There's a bit of variation there, but I don't want it to be silly. I don't want it to look like two different types of wood have been used. So I do need a relatively good match onto these. And as I say, I don't think any of these quite fit the bill, but I think something like that with a little bit more darkness in it, or maybe even a bit more orange, just to sort of warm it up a bit, probably wouldn't go far wrong. What I might actually do is spray in this directly onto there, and then just do a bit of dry brushing with some other different colours, just to sort of build up the variation in colour a bit more. So for now, I'm only painting the aft staircase. I'm only doing the sort of ring around the top, which is on A deck, and the staircase that leads down from A deck to B deck. And the reason I'm only doing that is because that's all I'm doing on the aft staircase. You're provided with 3 staircases, the A deck to B deck, the B deck to C deck, and below. But I
I just don't see the point, because I just don't think you'll be able to see the staircase any lower. There's no way you can see the staircase on B deck through the windows. I've checked repeatedly that you can't see it. So the only consideration was whether you'd be able to look down through the dome and see the staircase on B deck, and you can't. So as I've shown you, I'm happy to add things if they add value, but if they don't, I just don't see the point. So on the aft, I'm only doing one set of stairs, but that will still be plenty, and it will certainly give the model a nice aesthetic. So, you join me in the shed on quite a wintry evening. Winter does now feel like it's rather closing in. I don't want to sound like Ed Stark, but winter does feel like it's coming. Anyway, fortunately, because this is insulated, it stays relatively warm. What I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the other grand staircases, because I don't really see why not. May as well. I've got paint mixed up, so why not? So I'll get on with that now. So I've just stuck the first of the printed panels down into the aft grand staircase, and I will now proceed with the rest.
So to add these, it's a simple case really of cutting them out very neatly with some scissors, and then gluing them down. I use CA glue here. I tend to sort of put them in position first, just to make sure that they fit and I don't need to do any additional trimming or anything like that. Then add the CA glue and then stick them down once and for all, good and solid. So what I'm doing here is I'm just dry brushing with a much darker colour. So I'm getting a little bit of paint on the brush, brushing most of it off, and then brushing the brush onto the workpiece.
So here we are, and I've just dry brushed that effect onto the wooden areas. Remember, the stairs are going to go white in a sec. But just by doing that, just sort of pick out a little bit more detail, make the wood look a little bit more varied, take that sort of uniform edge off, you know, and I think it really improves the look quite dramatically. Of course, these bits at the back really do set the thing off nicely as well.
Right, so now I need to do one of the cherubs. And I believe that these cherubs were bronze. So I'm using this metallic bronze paint, 55. It's very old, so I'm not sure if that Umbral 55 is still that colour paint, but it certainly was back in 1995, or whenever I originally bought this. I probably didn't buy paint in 1995, a bit too young at that age. Anyway, I'm not normally a huge fan of these metallic paints, because I always think they look a bit more glittery than metallic, if you know what I mean. You sort of get speckles of metal rather than a flat metal colour, but you know, they serve a purpose, and for the visibility of these cherubs it is more than sufficient. So I'm going to paint two because I need one for the forward and one for the aft staircase. So may as well cover all the bases. There we are. Now I'm not going to show all of these because videoing makes it significantly harder to do. But what I am going to do is I'll show you one of how I do these balustrades. So start with I'm cutting them out with a craft knife, and I find that I have to have a white background for that. I tried it on my cutting board, but I just couldn't pick out where I needed to cut on the cutting board. So it had to be a white background, but that's not a problem. So there's our balustrade. Actually, there's a piece there that should get trimmed down a bit. Now, this needs to go on this section here, like that. But I'm going to put it on the inside, not the out. It's a bit harder to see from the viewing angle that we will look at the grand staircase from. Okay, so the next thing I do, if I can find it, is I'll just put a little bit of glue on each of the areas that's going to see the balustrade. So there, here, of course there. And then we stick it on. And I'm amazed that worked, but there we are. Pretty much there, there's just one to go. That's the end part.
The reason I'm laughing is because these things seldom ever end up being as easy when you're doing it in front of a camera. But that actually went remarkably well, and there's a balustrade in place. As I say, it doesn't look as good when you've got to shine a spotlight on it, because the spotlight catches on the clear plastic. But in normal daylight, I reckon these things look really good. And the staircase now is really starting to look special, isn't it? Starting to look really, really good.
So I carried on and did the rest of the balustrades, and I also added the cherub at the bottom. The only ones that I didn't add were the balustrades on the flight of stairs going up to A deck. And that was because they're very, very, very small, and in reality I felt that they were too small. By that sort of size, the actual thickness of the plastic made it all look a little bit out of scale. And they were also going to be fairly visible from where you'd be able to view the grand staircase on my model. So I decided that they weren't really worth trying to do. They were also dastardly fiddly. But apart from those, all of the other balustrades are in place. I know that some of the paint on the stairs still needs touching up. The white needs probably a second going over, and it also needs to sort of be lined a bit better against the actual balustrades itself. But those are all fairly minor jobs to be done in the coming days. In this time-lapse, I'm using a light sort of filler just to flatten the area around the additional piece of plastic I had to do to get the aperture to the correct size. Just working it into all the cracks and so on.
So might be wondering why I cut that piece of plastic out underneath here. Simply because it looked very thick. The floor had the actual boat deck piece, and then it had this other grey plastic underneath it, and it just looked so thick. So by removing it, it just improves the aesthetic ever so slightly.
And so there we are. There is the aft grand staircase all done, and I'm very happy with it. Aft grand staircase finished on A deck, so we don't need to go any higher than this. I did contemplate going lower, but I just don't see the point, because you just can't see it. You can't see the staircase from B deck anyway, so the only way that you would see a staircase any lower than the one that we've got is if you could see it through the skylight, and I don't think you'll be able to. So I'm not going to do any more than this on the aft. On the forward grand staircase, I'll do the boat deck and A deck, so we'll get two levels to that, so you'll see how it sort of connects together and connects the decks together a bit better with that one, perhaps. But I'm really happy with the effect of this. I'm very happy with the balustrades as well. I wasn't entirely sure how well they would work, because I did think that they might just be a little bit too small to really be manageable. But they actually look really good, particularly from a distance they look really good as well. And I'm also very happy with the paint on this now. The paint that I've got blends very nicely with the printouts glued to the back of the staircase. And I think that dry brushing technique, just to sort of vary the colours of the wood a wee bit, have just made it look a little bit more natural as well. So all in all, I'm really happy with how this part of the model's turned out. I have to thank Laurent Finkel for a lot of the method that I've used to actually install this grand staircase. He wrote a post on the Trumpeter Facebook page, which he drew my attention to in one of the comments on the last video. And it's very well detailed. It explains very clearly and concisely how he managed to achieve the fitting of his grand staircase, and I certainly used a lot of those ideas when fitting my own, so thank you very much for that. And also it's worth saying that I haven't really finished this area yet. There's a bit of furniture that needs to go in the sort of surrounding foyer for the grand staircase, and there's also a few sort of pillars and stuff that stood in the room as well. And of course I do want to add some people in this area as well, perhaps people coming up from their cabins, going out for a wee stroll on the promenades, that sort of thing. So there's still stuff to do, but the bulk of the work in this area is now complete. So that's it for the modelling today. If you've got any questions, comments, what have you, pop them down below and I'll do my absolute best to get back to you. If you've enjoyed this, like and subscribe. And remember, I'm just about to discuss the giveaway, so if you're interested in that, stick around. If you're not, then see you in the next one, and bye for now.
And so, it's the moment you've all been waiting for. It's the giveaway. So today, you could win these 3 items from China 3D. We have the forward hatch cover, a set of whistles to go on top of your funnels, and also the anchor chains and windlasses. Now, why am I giving these away? Well, today is the 40th video I have produced in my build log of the Trumpeter 1:200 scale model of the Titanic, and it's about 39 more than I thought I'd ever make. I never really thought the channel was going to get any momentum, so this is a very welcome surprise for me. So I thought I'd be giving something back to people who have subscribed and hopefully enjoyed the content over the last year and a bit. So how have I got these parts? Well, China 3D sent me these and quite a few other bits and bobs a couple of weeks ago to do a review of some of their stuff. And that review is up, it's on the channel. If you haven't seen it yet, you can click on the videos section of my channel and it's review number 2, China Parts 3D. And I basically go into detail on what I think of these parts. You know, what I think of the quality, how historically accurate I think they are. And I also go and compare them against the KA set, which I've used extensively during my own model, but also the Trumpeter model itself. And to sort of boil this review down nicely for you, I think they are absolutely superb. So they're well worth winning. So how do you win them? Well, all you have to do is to write in the comments down below, write a comment with the name of Titanic's chief engineer. Who was Titanic's chief engineer? If you get that name correct, I will add your name to a spreadsheet and we'll use a random number generator to select the winner. Now there's a couple of rules. First, you've got to be a subscriber to the channel. Now, yeah, I know, fair enough. It's a blatant punt for more subscribers, but can you blame me? Yeah, I think I'm okay. Secondly, please only enter if you are wanting to use these parts for your own model, okay? I can't police it, but I would be really annoyed if someone won this competition and then tried to sell them on eBay for personal gain. That's not in the spirit of it, it's not what it's about. Please only enter if you want to use these parts on your own model, okay? So, you've got until the 31st of October to get your answer in. Anyone who goes after that point, sorry, but you won't be included. 31st of October, who was Titanic's chief engineering officer? If you're successful, I'll let you know, and you will get these parts sent to you. I'm paying postage as well. There is absolutely no cost your end whatsoever. Just answer the question, and if you win, the parts will arrive at your door. So good luck, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.